everybody, and welcome back to the Places We'll Go show with Richie and I, another fabulous guest today. Welcome to the show, Nicky Badenoch.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on, Nicky, and we've known each other for a couple of years. I'm remembering, actually, that serendipitous moment at a Saatchi's Christmas dinner where we bumped into each other randomly and did intros, and it's led to all sorts of things. And do you remember Ruti was singing that night? It was amazing, and I'm still waiting for her to release that song that she sung and to go on tour and do amazing things. Anyway, we'll get back to serendipity because it's kind of a theme that's going to run through today. So for people who don't know, Nicky is co-founder and chief growth officer at Genie. Say what Genie is in the moment. Been there 4 years. Prior to that, was a headhunter for 15 years, and you'll see the link there. So what is Genie? Genie is an AI-powered workforce management tech platform. So this came from Nicky's frustration that too much of the world of work is left to serendipity. And what role can technology play to more systematically bring the right people and the right skills together in a way that's respectful of the humans involved to improve companies, the way that companies work and their performance and impact. She's passionate about AI for good, the role that AI plays in doing good in the world. So you'll hear lots of negativity and scaremongering around AI. You might get a very different spin today. And actually how intelligent casting, as Nicky calls it, is great for people and great for businesses. Nicky also has set up the Genie School of, which is helping sixth formers link to very experienced professionals. It's a little bit like some of the mentoring stuff that we do here at the School of Marketing. That's been running for 3 years. And all round, I think we're going to get a fascinating perspective on AI and the world of work. And I have to say, all right, Nicky is an all-round lovely person. So let's go. Over to you, Richie.
Well, hey. Well, thank you, Nicky, for coming on. It sounds like you're living in a very exciting world, which is really in the cusp of some of the core topics that we have been talking about, let alone AI, but as well as the world of workforce management. So how's it going? How's the kickoff of 2024 been for you over the last few months?
Do you know what, Richie? I came into 2024. I remember 1st of January, I had taken a very long Christmas break, totally switched off, and came back into January feeling full of enthusiasm and optimism. And I wasn't sure whether it was misplaced or not, to be honest, at the time. But I felt that this year was going to be a very important year for our business. And I think when anyone embarks on a journey of starting something from scratch, literally from nothing, and especially in the technology space, I think for me it was always about being able to make an impact and being able to do that, and the way that you make an impact is doing that at scale, so you can affect lots of people's lives. And this year it feels like we're getting to that place where there's a moment in time where what we've been doing is becoming really, really relevant to businesses and people. And so that's an incredibly exciting time for me as a founder, because, you know, I'm building something here and I'm thinking, okay, now's the time that actually we can really hit that growth trajectory to be able to land this proposition for both businesses and the people in those businesses as well, most importantly. So yeah, 2024 has got off to a good start. We have expanded our proposition as a business. So when we first embarked on this journey, we were working in the world of freelance, and we've now taken that proposition from working outside of businesses to going inside businesses, and really reimagining what like the modern workforce really looks like. And so that's taking us to an interesting place whereby we're able to really unlock the true value of talent, really, when you're looking at it in the round and in the whole. And this year kicked off with signing a contract with Accenture Song to be able to do that. So that's hugely exciting. So yeah, momentum underway, and I couldn't have wished for a better start to 2024. But it hasn't always been easy, and I'm sure we'll get there. So yeah, we, you know, in startup world, you always go, yeah, touch wood.
Yeah, we might get into those bumps in the road, because you don't start a business without some of those. But amazing that you're finding your moment of relevance. But you said that the true value of talent. I mean, let's not skip over the fact that the School of Marketing is about giving opportunity, because whilst talent and capability is ubiquitous and universal, opportunity isn't. So tell us a bit more about how you hope to unlock that true value of talent.
About a month or so ago, I went to a reunion. So I used to work at an ad agency called Rainey Kelly. I don't know if either of you remember Rainey Kelly from way back when. And Rainey Kelly was really ahead of its time. So its whole kind of mission was ideas before advertising, ideas after advertising, above advertising. And so it really thought about kind of long ideas. And it was a very special time for me. I think at the time I didn't realise, totally took it for granted how I was working with some incredibly talented people who went on to do incredible things. And at this reunion, so this text message went out, Dalia Nahom, I'll talk about Dalia because she's been very instrumental in my career. And Dalia Nahom and Helen Kimber organised this party. And it was very kind of like all over text, like almost all old school, like the message just spread and we all got together in this room. And James Murphy got on the table and did a speech. And the first thing he said is comes back to this moments in time thing, which is, you know, this was a place where we had the right people in the right room at the right time. And we all felt that. We all knew exactly what that meant. Everyone in that room, the reason we were there was because we felt that. And I think this is what talent, I believe that everyone has talent and everyone has gifts, but it's when you come together with the right people that those gifts you basically can get like the multiplier effect. Those gifts can multiply because you're coming together with the right people. And there are multiple examples of this in business. So some of the best businesses have been founded off these serendipitous moments whereby, like, you know, the founders of Google, for example, like Larry Page showed Sergey Brin around college campus back in Stanford. Now, had those two guys not had that, you know, they might have met someone else, but coming together hugely individually so talented. And so I believe fundamentally that the bringing together of the right people, that's when you unlock the full potential of talent. And that's actually very, very profound. And I've experienced that. I've been fortunate enough to experience that in my career. I've been lucky and fortunate enough to be able to impact other people's careers, to be able to achieve that too. And for me, it's very much about how can businesses unlock that in a systemized way. And when you do that, then that's when you can get like huge growth. That's when you take yourself to that high performance stage. And who doesn't want that?
Hey, that sounds awfully exciting, and it's amazing that you guys are still in touch and able to kind of reconnect in that way. And as you say, it's really testament to that moment in time that you had, that you can have a viral text message that then gets everyone back together almost in an instant, which just goes to show how special everyone felt that moment probably was when you're working in that environment. And I think one of the things that you touched on is, you clearly, I love your little sort of right people, right room, right time. And I think that absolutely is at the core of it. And in my experience of really getting the most out of teams and talent, clearly it's a consequence of having the right people in the right room. But I also feel that there is a really important dimension about being in the right room and creating the right room in and around you. And to that, I mean the right environment, the right context, to enable those people to actually get the best work from them.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's something that you've noticed or that you've thought of, which is how do you ensure that the right people get themselves into the right places and spaces in order to truly shine with the right people there as well, of course?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. So there are lots of ways I could answer that question. I think there's a multitude of answers to that, like being able to create the safety for ideas to thrive, allowing people to be able to take risks. Like, well, those are all the fundamental pillars of leadership. But how my kind of angle into this, and I think kind of the frustration that often you see in business is that people will go for like the lowest hanging fruit. So that is like whoever's in front of me, right? And ultimately that is the equivalent to you working in a data void, because you're only making decisions on like your immediate kind of stratosphere, and actually there's a multitude of ideas, and so as if I was a leader in business, I'd be wanting to welcome in as many ideas from as many corners that I could find in the pursuit of greatness. And so I think, yes, creating the context is, from a culture perspective, I think all of those things are 100% important. But I think you've got to start with the foundations, and the foundations are like, who is in my business? Who have I got access to? How am I profiling the people that I've got so I understand what talents and what gifts they can bring to this organization? Do I even have that? And most organizations, if they're honest with themselves, probably don't. And so that's like, you know, forgetting all the other things which you've got to be doing to be able to create like that culture. Actually, the kind of the foundations that, like, my co-founder Nick talks about, like wizards without wands, right? You could be the wizard. You can have like this amazing leadership, but how can you take yourself next level? And so this is what we're here to do.
So fascinating. And ultimately, mine in a nutshell is the allocation of people to work inside a company is pretty random and certainly biased. As in, I know that person pretty well, and I know they've done such and such in the past. And so it's not, not ridiculous decisions that are made, but ultimately people don't know what they don't know about people they've never really met or interacted with. Yeah. And so, like, let's hear a little bit about the clever stuff. Like, how does this actually make sure the right people come together on any given project in big, complex, global, virtual organizations?
Yeah. So the casting director within an organization is like a really important role, and that casting director will come in many different guises. So in some organizations it'll be called like project director, in some organizations it'll be head of traffic, in some organizations it could be the CMO, and so that person is the person that is responsible for taking that organization and really casting that room to make sure the right people are there. So for us, it's about really arming that person so that they can be like A game at their jobs. And so that starts with visualization. So how can you cast a room effectively if you don't know who, coming back to, you don't know who you've got in the business. So profiling and understanding who you've got in your business. Now, breaking that down a little bit deeper, how do you then, the next question is, well, how do you profile who you've got in your business, right? Like how are you going to work that piece of the puzzle out? And so that's about really breaking down what talent is. So talent breaks down not just into your label, like your job title, but like the skills and the specialisms that you can bring to the party. And so that's starting to kind of then go like next level down, like how do we break that down? So our system, what we endeavor to do is to basically break down like what is the gift of talent into a skills and specialisms system. And then the next question is like, how do you keep that data up to date? So because it's all very well, you'll capture moment in time, but you then need to be able to keep that data up to date and keep it alive. And so it starts with that visualization piece. And then the next stage of that is in the matching, which we like to give the freedom for either that casting director to do the matching themselves, or they can fire up the machine to do the matching for them. And so they have that choice. And when they fire up the machine to do the matching for them, that can then shortcut them and save them the time of having to search. But a lot of people enjoy the search as well. Like, you can't take that away. And so our system enables both of those things, all with the view to then being able to make an informed decision as to who the best person is to put on this particular project or my business.
I find that really fascinating. And in my days, we've done a lot of diagnostic work around the type of skill sets that marketing functions will need into the future. And therefore, what that requires is an in-depth knowledge of both the current skill sets that exist within a department or a function, but thereafter an acute understanding of the future-focused strategy to be able to understand where the North Stars are and what are the skill sets that are going to then take us to achieve those.
Yep.
And I wondered, within the context of your technology, how do you account for the future-focused elements or the future-focused skills and capabilities that are going to be required in what is obviously right now quite an ambiguous sort of environment?
Yeah, so our system sits within the day-to-day operations of a business. So part of that data piece is you keep those up to date, and you're basically capturing all that live data that's going through in the live. So rather than sitting in, I guess, HR, which might get more into your long-term ambitions, our system will feed into that, will integrate into those systems, but it sits very much in the live in the day-to-day. So it's capturing everything that's coming through. And so to some degree, it's basically captured. So in order, matching is two sides of a coin. It's, well, who's right to put onto the business, but what's our business need? And so it's capturing all that data about what's coming through and where the trends are going, and then from being able to capture that data, we can then go, okay, well, what are the trends? What are the skills that are coming next in the business? And to some degree, work with those businesses to help them then predict what the next skills should be. So it's an ever-evolving piece, effectively.
I just want to make a clarification question here. Maybe other people might be thinking the same. Is, in terms of the technology, you referred to the thought that putting the most appropriate people with the right skill sets onto specific projects and programs that may well be ongoing. Is that a consequence of taking people who maybe are currently working within the context of the organization and getting them into the right places and spaces? Or is it also encompassing getting more external talent in when required in order to kind of fulfill the requirements of that project or program as well?
So it can be both. So when we first started the business, we were dealing with the Friday night problem, effectively. So the Friday night problem was, I've got a massive pitch, or I'm got a new product to launch and we're massively behind, and we need to get the right resource onto this. And so our system was dealing with some of that, we need someone now, and that was the Friday night problem. And what we realised was that there was a massive opportunity which we weren't grabbing, because we weren't getting into the Monday morning problem. And the Monday morning problem starts with, okay, who've I got within my business? I'm the UK arm of this massive organisation, but I can't see who's in the US, and I can't see who's in Singapore, and I can't see who's in Australia. So we weren't getting to the core of okay, who's right to put on my business. So the in terms of what our system will do is it will present both options. It will present who's in my business now, but who's also best to bring in externally as well from their trusted freelance pool. So yeah, some might call it 360 matching, I guess.
Cool.
But yeah, we've basically gone right, how can we give this whole picture? But really starting with who's right, who if you think about your most validated talent pool is the pool that you hire, right? They've gone through, you think of an interview. I used to work in recruitment, so an interview process. I mean, normally 3 months minimum to run someone through a full end-to-end interview process. And some businesses are more rigorous than others in terms of the behavioural economics of landing the right person through the journey. And so you've gone a long way to invest in this person, and this person is right. This person is part of our team, part of our tribe. and then to not fully optimize that person and not have them sat doing the right thing, that's nuts.
It's nuts.
That is nuts.
Bang on.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think this is pretty mega in my view, because this is about organizations being much more efficient. So, you know, you're scaling really fast. It's an incredible story, bringing massive productivity gains to massive organizations. It's also about the opportunity for individuals to shine who are often underrepresented, which is, you know, absolutely what the School of Marketing is all about. So it's all super, super cool. I do want to come on to about AI for good and your spin on that. But I want to hear a bit more about the person behind the story and join some dots on how you got to here. So you mentioned Dahlia as an influence, but tell us a bit about some of the influences, some of the key points growing up, sliding doors. How did you get from there to here?
So where do I start? So my parents, my mum is a refugee, came from Egypt at age 16 to the UK, left everything behind. They came here with nothing, literally nothing. My dad, second generation Holocaust survivor. His dad lost his parents in the Second World War and never spoke about it. And so my mum and dad, like, they're almost opposites attract. A really brilliant couple. But life wasn't always easy for us or easy when I was a child. My dad's a creative, so but a creative who found himself in a commercial world, and he's not hugely commercial, and so he was a writer by night, and he was a salesman by day, a packaging salesman by day, and he was trying to do both at the time he was writing. I don't know if either of you are familiar with weekending, which was quite big on the radio in the 1980s. And he was doing pretty well. He was rubbing shoulders with some really talented people, and that was his dream. And then when I was age 9, he had a huge heart attack, and he nearly died. And I was at home. I saw that, and it changed everything. And actually, before that, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because before that, I had no relationship with my father at all. I didn't see him. He was always working. He was always pursuing his passion as well. And that was why he had a heart attack. He was like totally burnt out. And then the roles flipped. So my mum went out to work. My dad was at home for a period. He was the one that was picking me up from school. And he's a very funny man. And we had a laugh. We had a really, really good time. And so it was a big, huge shock for the family. And it meant that we didn't have any money because he wasn't working, and, you know, all these things. But I really got to know my dad, and my dad was a creative, and I loved hanging out with him. And I was reading his material from a very, very young age. And so I think this idea of like nurturing talent started for me like really, really young. But one of the things that was like marked, I guess, my childhood was this notion of luck. And I think my dad felt he'd been a bit unlucky. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. And I think he'd felt he'd been a bit unlucky because things hadn't quite worked his plan, you know. And I remember him always say, you know, in life it's not just, you need a bit of luck. And I was just like, I just can't believe that. Like, what do you mean you need luck? Like, surely it's like your talent and all, you make your luck. Like, this just felt like a huge injustice to me that you need luck. Like, and something that you have no control over is going to define what happens to you. Are you kidding me? And so that stuck with me. So that was point one that stuck with me. The second thing that stuck with me was I need to work hard. And my parents are not helicopter parents by any sense of the imagination. I think they only said to me once that neither of them got their education. And they just said to me once, look, you have to work. If you want anything in life, you have to graft, you have to work. And I think, like, they said it to me once and it just stuck. And And at some point I thought, right, I'm going to make my own luck. I'm going to go and I'm going to make my own luck. But I still do believe you need a little bit of luck, actually. I think my dad was right. And now that I'm older, I reflect back and go, I was lucky. There were times in my life where, again, I had these like sliding door moments. And so the first sliding door moment was my best mate. So I had no guidance on like university and all of that. Like, I went to a Jewish school, and most of my friends, the thing was you go to Manchester or Leeds, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go with everyone else. I just wanted to like do something else. And my best mate's sister went to Bristol, and I went to visit her, and this was Dahlia. And so I just went, oh yeah, I want to go there. She was like, I'll follow her. I'm going to go there. And so it was a bit of a lazy approach, to be honest, like reflecting back. And I chose my course, literally, we didn't have websites in those days. I did economics and politics. I chose that course I was going to do politics. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to shove in a bit of economics as well, because I think this might help me. And just like looked up a course code, LM11. Where can I do LM11? Yeah, I'll do it there. Yeah. That sounds great. Off the application went. My parents didn't look at it. Off it went. And then when I left uni, I went into accountancy for a bit. And that was probably like reflecting back, felt like a bit of a mistake, because it just wasn't me. And my mum had always said, like, find a career path where you can be a mother as well as follow a career. Like, and accountancy is a good thing. You can do both. And I got there, and I just really didn't enjoy it at all. So at that point, I was pretty miserable, actually, and literally like crying myself into the pillow at night, kind of miserable. And so again, I remember chatting to Dahlia and going, what shall I do next? Like, do you have any clues? I'm a little bit lost. And she said, you know what, have you considered advertising? Because advertising is just a really fun way of earning money. And she just basically pitched this thing to me. And I was like, my God, that sounds amazing. I want to do that. That sounds brilliant. And I'd missed all the grad rounds. And so I just remember sitting at my IKEA desk, and I don't even know, I can't even remember where I got the email addresses from. Like, that's because we didn't have LinkedIn. So I don't know how I got the email. I can't remember. I think I called up. I think I used, 100 whatever, and called round and found the names of the advertising agencies, called them up, and found out like a person that could take my email, and basically sent a load of emails out and said, like, I want to be an account executive. Will you give me a chance, kind of thing? And I got one response. And this guy said, yeah, come in. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And had an interview with him. Pete, I can't remember his surname. Anyway, he was at McCann Erickson, and he gave me a job. That was my first break. He gave me the job. He gave me a break, and then from there they took me just on for like 3 months. And by the end of the 3 months, they said, come on to the grad scheme. And then kind of the rest was history. Like, I then ended up working at Rainey Kelly and with some brilliant people. And then at Rainey Kelly was, as I spoke before, like, was a special time. Like, I worked with incredible talent. I worked on Lego. I worked on M&S. I worked on M&S during a time where they went from they were like in really dark times to really good times. So like, I was there to like, I found myself in meeting rooms I probably had no right to be in. I was sat there with Stuart Rose and Steve Sharp, and we were like reimagining what the future of marketing was going to look like, and it was marketing that really worked. I mean, it was crazy how much it worked. It was brilliant. The thrill of that was just incredible, and they kept going with that campaign for years and years after I'd gone. I had and had my first, so I loved working there, and I had my first baby there. And it was, when I got back to work after having a baby, my mindset has shifted. And things had just shifted. Like I was came back a different person to the one I was before. And at that point I did, and the industry was different then. I think it's much more accommodating now than it was back then. And I felt like I couldn't imagine myself doing what I was doing and being a mum at the same time and being able to balance the two. And so at that point I was like, okay, I need to think about something else. And I had a meeting with the talent business, called me up, and they tried to hire me to come and work for them. And so that kind of sparked something. And they didn't end up giving me the job, despite approaching me. but I it just sparked something, and I was like, this is interesting. So I could still be around creative people, and I can do what I've always loved doing, which was like, going back to like my dad and like working with creative people and helping them get to the right places. This could be really interesting, but not being at like the coal face of it. This could be really interesting. And so I did a search, like I don't know what we used then, Google, and this article came up of this lady called Liz Harold. And I've since tried Googling this article and never found the article again. But this is kind of like strip article, which was like a cutting at the time when I found it. And I was sat in a meeting room. I remember being sat in the meeting room at Rainy Kelly, looking at this article. I'd gone into a room to kind of do my research during the day whilst at work. And it talked about this lady, Liz Harold, who had pioneered headhunting. And I thought, I want to meet her. She sounds amazing. And so I called them up. I just called them up cold and just said, hey, I've just read an article about you and I want to do this. Can I come and have a chat to you? And she said, yeah, come in. And we kind of had this kind of courtship over a few months. And when she offered me a job to come and work with her, and she said, she said, Nikki, how many days do you want to work? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what do you think? And she goes, well, would 3 days work for you? And literally at the time, no one was, I didn't know anyone that was working 3 day week. And I literally nearly fell off my chair. I was like, yeah, that would really work for me. And so it felt like the first time as someone that just understood like everything I had to deal with at home and managing a family, but yet really being ambitious and wanting to have a career and being able to juggle the two. And she just got it. And working there was like the best years. It was like being with a family. And that's where I met my co-founders. So I met Bonnie, it's where I met Nick. Liz ended up investing in Genie as well. She bought into the next iteration of what the future of talent management looks like. But Liz really taught me. She really taught me the value of bringing basically matchmaking and how you, like the art of doing that, like how you bring the right people together. And she was never money motivated at all. We did well as a business, but for her, it was like the money will follow if you do all of these things. So don't worry about the money, like do all of these things. And so she just had her heart absolutely in the right place. And that, on Christmas Eve, the creatives would walk through our office on Christmas Eve to give Liz Christmas presents. They don't have to come via Liz to give, before they got to go back to their families. But she had made such a difference in their lives. She's impacted hundreds of people's lives in the industry, I'd say. If you haven't met her, you got to get her on this show. She is an incredible woman. And so so I learned from the best. And I came together and I met my co-founders there. And that was like, again, like quite a lucky moment in my career. And so I don't think Genie was my idea. I think Genie was Nick's idea. And Nick, Mark, I think Nick's like an over-the-hill thinker. He's always has been. He's always like, what's next? Like, he can just see it. I can't see it. He's got like the vision. He can see it. And so I think he had the idea for Genie and was like, what do you think? I was like, that sounds freaking incredible. Let's do it. And so when he had the idea for Genie, I think for us, we were like, oh, what should we call it? And we were sat in Pret a Manger over like the Beak Street, and then it just came to us. I think Bonnie said, well, why don't we call it? I know I said, like, what's your mum's middle name? Because Bonnie is Liz's daughter, and she said Jean, and then Bonnie said, well, let's call it Genie, and it just seemed to be the thing. It just seemed to capture the magic of what we were doing, bringing the right people together. So that's the journey. But I think like the common theme on all of that, it comes back to this luck thing of like serendipitous moments that help create a bit of magic within business, and just feeling like, yeah, I've had that. Aren't I lucky? I've had that. But how do we make this not luck? How do we systemize this within companies? How bring the right people together, and what's the magic that creates on the other side?
Nikki, wow, it's quite an incredible journey that you've been on, all the way from your early years. And your kudos to your mom and dad. They must have been through so much, and coming through that is quite incredible. I reflect on the role of luck a lot myself, and how that sort of comes together. And I'm in agreement with you and your dad that there needs to be a bit of luck involved in anything. And in fact, when you said that, I was kind of sort of nodding in my mind, going, yeah, I agree, the role of luck, and how do we create more luck and opportunity. But interestingly, I don't know if you've ever really deep dived into this, but the narrative that you've just put forth, as much, of course, as there's those sliding doors moments, let me tell you, you did create your own luck. And it goes beyond, of course, right place, right time, but the thought that, you were willing to embrace what your best friend Dahlia had to say, the thought that you were perhaps in a bad situation in a career in that moment in time, but had the ability and want and desire to get out of it and seek something new. The ability to proactively go after those phone numbers, where today it's far easier, by the way, with services perhaps like yours, as well as things like LinkedIn, to get access to those places and spaces. But back then it probably wasn't. So you had the gusto, the desire to actually get yourself out of that moment. Thank you, Pete. I'm still wondering if Pete's yes was a Friday night problem or a Monday morning problem. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one it was.
Friday night, I think.
Perhaps. But, taking those chances and actually making the most of them, because you actually ended up in the grad scheme. So it's not a question of just having a door open. It's what you do with the door that actually is fundamentally important. So I think, there's so many things and there's so many moments that you've talked to, but actually at the heart of that, it comes with even the attitude. When you talked about when Nick approached you with the concept, and it was your open-mindedness to kind of go, this is incredible, let's do it. And actually a lot of people may have said yes, no, others, whatever, but there's a mindset thing that's also within that. So I think this in itself is a wee bit of a little playbook about how you do actually kind of carve out your own path and create your own luck as you go along. And I'm sure you've had many reflective moments in and around this, and it's great to hear. But I do think, you've really sort of overturned the luck thing into something which has been far more proactive than perhaps you've given yourself credit for.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. But I think the proactive thing, I think it's about creating something that's an enabler so that you can, right? Yeah. So if you don't have the right systems in place to enable that conversation in the first place, then you are relying on someone's gusto to make those things happen. And I'm sure, a lot of organizations have that gusto in immeasurable quantities, but how can you just increase that probability stake?
So, wow, amazing to hear your life story arc, Nikki. I've heard some of it before, but does it end to end? And I agree with a lot of what Richie said. So, unfortunately, we've come to the last question. Time has gone by. And let's end on the small matter of AI as a force for good or a force for bad. You're in the good camp. So tell us a bit more about that. Why should we be optimistic about the role AI can play in the world?
Well, first of all, I'd say I am in the good camp, but I think you've got to be realistic about the bad camp. You can't be in the good camp without being in the bad camp too. And the good camp almost is born out of the bad kind of thing. And I think that there's a lot of conversation around AI now, and the risks as well as the opportunities it poses to the marketing industry per se. And I think a lot of the talk has been around the high gloss, the kind of, isn't it amazing that we can now create artificial people, and we can create artificial copy, and we can, isn't it amazing that we can do all these things? Basically, everyone's wowed by the artificialness of AI, and that is amazing. I mean, it is amazing, right? But I still come back to like human intelligence and HI. Like, how is AI going to enhance HI? And that's the business that I'm interested in. And so what we talk, obviously, like within the creative industries, we talk a lot about our output and how our output can then lead to more consumer attention, which then leads to higher revenue growth, which then leads to bottom line growth, all those things. Whereas what I'm talking about is actually concentrating on your inputs. And there's a wonderful story, which I don't know if you've ever heard, about Steve Jobs and how Steve Jobs used to obsess about the unseen. So he used to obsess about the first 10 or so Macs that were created. He got his software engineers to kind of put their autograph on. And he got them to, his software engineers, he was like, I want to see how the circuit board beneath the keyboard is art directed. Like, what does it look like? They're like, why does it matter? And so he was obsessed with craft. That was part of his product. And so that went to every little bit that you couldn't see. And so this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about with good AI. Good AI is around really impacting where I feel the biggest opportunity to be had with AI is around almost some of the boring stuff that you can't really see, but creates the conditions for the output to really, really thrive. And so good AI for me is about both your ins and your outs. It's about the process that you're going through to create really work to thrive, but it's also, again, as a business going, well, how, as a business, as our business, I feel that if we won't have made a human difference here, then personally, I will have failed. That's like, that's the way I am. That's the way I am wired. And for me, I am looking for those, as a leader in the tech space and in AI, I'm looking for those positive use cases where we're going, okay, where are the AI positive use cases which are going to actually enhance humankind and make us better? There are loads of examples, and we've got to take, responsive AI, and all that is 100% important. We've all got to mitigate that. There needs to be a ton of regulation that comes on the street. The regulation that never came for social media needs to happen for AI, 100%. But where are the examples of how AI can enhance humankind? And I think that's something that we all should be on the watch out for. So yeah, that's where I am with it.
I love the notion of how can AI help HI. I just think that's a lovely turn of phrase and way to think about and shorthand the big massive job that we have to do as a consequence. And Nikki, this morning has been fantastic on so many levels. Hearing about the work that you're doing at Genie to really transform the growth and transformation of organizations through a new model of the workforce. And like you said, solving for that acute problem that we can only see what is right in front of us at the moment. And by being able to genuinely go into the data and create a mechanism to be able to expand our horizons, to truly get access to talents in places and spaces, and then fit that talent. And as you termed it, right people, right room, right time, to really make transformation happen. I think that's such an exciting journey, and I'm so glad that people like Nick, Bonnie, Liz, yourself are championing that cause. I think it's wonderful because it really needs to come through to give organizations the next lease of life, as it were. I also think, you talked about, I love Nick's phrase, wizards without wands. The thought around the fundamental pillars of leadership need to really be in place. Who is in my business and how do I get access to them? And if we don't, we'll all end up being wizards without wands. And I think that's great. And the wizards in this context is the casting directors. And how do you arm the casting directors with that right visualization, with the right talent, with the right skills and specialisms, and then match them to the right people, both internally and externally, is at the heart of what Genie's trying to achieve. I love the thought, the evolution of the organization, where in the first instance, it was all around the Friday night problem, and now you're moving to the Monday morning problems. But I'm sure both are still extraordinarily relevant. And I just want to, really shout out to you folks. I think it's been incredible, and I'm sure they're extremely proud of you for making some of those really, really difficult choices that you've had to do along the way. Some which I'm sure have come from the head, but I think a lot of it's come from the heart, actually.
Yeah.
That you've had in your journey. And I think it would be a real inspiration for so many people listening in here today, just to be able to hear some of that. And particularly the junctures that you've had in your life where, they've been difficult decisions, and yet somehow, through a bit of proactivity and perhaps a bit of luck, those sliding doors moments have happened and occurred, and something has come along the way which has just been the right fit and match for you. But I think what you're trying to solve for is making sure that right fit and match is not by chance for everybody else. And I think that's just great to hear the fortuitous nature of your personal journey enwrapped with what you're doing now professionally as well. And then, of course, finishing up in the world of AI and the opportunities, the risks, and how we should be thinking about being able to take both the ethical, the regulatory stance with it, but also seeking the opportunity to enhance human intelligence through artificial intelligence. So, Nikki, it's just been a fascinating conversation and really, really enjoyed it. So thank you for taking the time to be on with us here today.
Thanks for listening.